Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Attention Pliss Podcast now on video. If you like this podcast, kindly like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. So today I wanted to talk about the Gyanvapi Mosque. Not so much the controversy per se, but my thoughts on the general issue. So for those of you who know me, in the sense that you followed my podcast and you followed me over the last many years, you know how I feel about the Ram Janmabhoomi issue. So for those of you who don't, I've never been, let's just say, I've never been for litigating or going back in history and trying to right historic wrongs. This is a principle that I use across the board. So this has got nothing to do with this side or that side. This is something which I've always believed as somebody who considered myself to be a liberal and a progressive. I realize I'm not, maybe. But I always thought that for me, the important thing is the individual. It's not group grievances. The state is not bound to handle your group grievances. Politicians are, they love group grievances because once you get people into that tribal mode, they vote for you, and people vote from emotion. They don't vote on data. So for me, it's important that individuals hold politicians and the government accountable for services that we expect from the government, which is the economy, law enforcement, defense, healthcare. That to me is the focus. That should be the focus. Politicians should be judged or evaluated based on their policies. And I know I'm talking like a Boy Scout here, but this was what I believed. My main thing was, again, I understand that the real world, I understood that the real world never quite works like this. But at least for me, it was important that our dealings with the government is tethered to our identity as an individual. For me, the way I've always seen we the people is that it's not we the people as parts of certain groups. It's we the people as individuals. And the Constitution is a contract between the individual and the state. And that was really the spirit of something like Magna Carta. So that to me has always been, and I've never understood why we as a nation. I understand why people want to do it. I totally get the tribal feeling of pride and this historic grievance that people have across groups. It's not just a Hindu thing, it's a Muslim thing, Christian thing, everything, every group. So I understand that, but I just feel that liberalism or progress means that we kind of attenuate or turn the knob down on that, and progress. Being progressive means we make the individual to be more important. And this was before the BuzzFeedization of progressiveness happened. So communist thought, which is exceptionally tribal, it became what liberalism is. So it became all about group grievance. Everything was about group grievance. The individual wasn't important. Anybody who talked about individualism was a fascist. It was all about group grievance. If you did not stand, if you did not say that, if you did not, then you are an enemy. You are an enemy of the people, which means an individual, you're an enemy of the group. This is what being progressive has become, especially over the last 10 years. So now I wonder whether what is right and what is wrong. Should we re-legislate history? Because we have the American progressives who are saying we should absolutely re-legislate history. We should absolutely do that. We should change the way history is taught. We should change, our whole fundamental understanding of history. We should take down Confederate statues. We should acknowledge the wrongs of the past. And I understand some of that too. I think, well, it kind of makes sense. It wasn't what I thought initially when I was young, which we should be doing, given that we have so many other problems. But okay, all right. But once you start doing it, you have to be consistent. You then can't say, no, your group is oppressed, but your group is absolutely not oppressed. You're the oppressor, which is what we see. I was shocked when I read a tweet from Padma Lakshmi, which said that Hindus have never been persecuted. This is, of course, a very common trope, which it denies. And she tweeted this right the day before a Kashmiri Pandit was killed. So this is the dark side of seeing the world through groups, is that even quote unquote liberals are absolutely unable to use either to see people as individuals or to see people consistently as members of groups. And why wouldn't there be Hinduphobia? There definitely is Islamophobia, right? We just read like a few days ago of a man who was killed for suspicion. As of now, that's what we know, on suspicion of being a Muslim. So obviously there is trenchant Islamophobia in parts of India. That is also true. But there's also trenchant Hinduphobia in parts of India. That has to be recognized. That people do not recognize. Saying that is considered to be right-wing. Even saying that, even making a movie on that is considered to be provocative, as in the case of Kashmir Files. Writing that in history is considered to be bad historian, which is what happened to Sitaram Goel. So here's the thing. For me, if we are going to look at us as groups, then the only way forward, and again, this is not an original thought, is truth and reconciliation. Truth is very, very important. So for me, the truth has to be acknowledged. The truth is that, yes, Hindu temples were razed to the ground and mosques were constructed on them. There is no whataboutery that goes on. People will say, but Hindus did that too. No, there's the scale, and they did that definitely. That's true, but not at that scale. Okay. To me, if you say, well, what are you saying? How does that bother you today? For me, it doesn't bother me at all. Because again, as I said, for me, the unit of justice is the individual. It's the individual who needs to be punished, not a group, not their descendants. So the person who killed the man on suspicion being a Muslim, the law needs to come down hard on that man, because that man is an individual. On that man, not the group that he claims to belong to, but that man, because that man is culpable. It's not, I heard this and I did it. No, you as an adult, again, comes back to the individual. You as an adult did it. You are responsible. You will face the consequence. This actually ties in between in our old Hindu philosophy also, in karma and dharma, but topic for another day. I've talked about that before too. So for me, the individual is of paramount. But if you're going to think of ourselves as groups, if now that pretty much everybody agrees, except that they're kind of blind to the other groups, that we have to first get our group grievances out of the way, then first of all, there needs to be the truth. The truth needs to be that groups have been persecuted in different parts of India by different groups, and everything has to be kept on the table. Now, this is where I think the legacy of Nehru is problematic for me, because one of the things that he did, and again, hindsight is 2020, but given the nation that he inherited, maybe he thought this was the way to go, was that he basically skipped over that truth and reconciliation process. He and his cabal of people wanted to hide what history was, because they felt that if people got to know, and one of the things, if you read Nehru's writings, you'll realize that Nehru was absolutely the Plato kind of guy who felt that, people shouldn't be allowed to rule. There needs to be some smart guys like me, of course, and my family. He doesn't say that, but they need to be, you can't just tell people stuff. They need to be, and they're like little children. He had that paternalistic thing. And that kind of runs through Nehruvian politics, that paternalism. So he felt that, along with his installed historians, that they will just basically hide what happened. And if anybody tried to say something else, they would just be discredited. And they could do this. They could technically do this as long as there was no internet, as long as there was All India Radio and Doordarshan. So they basically controlled the means of communication. So there was really nothing anybody could do. If you were deplatformed, you were replatformed. Then came WhatsApp, and people just, there was no lever on the truth anymore. Now, this is where things get really terrible, because once you are proven to have lied, the other side is absolutely free to pass any kind of lie as truth, saying, we caught them in lie number 1, lie number 2, lie number 3. Why not lie number 4? And lie number 4 is actually a lie. So this has enabled a lot of fake grievances also to come out and become WhatsApp forwards. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't real grievances. Again, group grievances. I don't buy into it, but I understand that people want to buy into it. But the first part of it is the truth. The truth must be out. You cannot say that Aurangzeb was, he was a decent guy. He wasn't always murdering people. I mean, he had his off days also. And there was this one temple he came to and he didn't destroy it. So no, you can't say that. You have to recognize their evil. You have to. And you cannot, again, if you are going to go with the group grievance, you have to. For me, again, I don't believe, who cares what Aurangzeb did? For me, who cares? Justice is gone. Aurangzeb's dead, long dead. I think I'm more concerned about what happened during COVID in terms of this state failure and the central failure. I'm more concerned about price rise. That's what I'm concerned about. But again, I understand that not everybody feels like me. And again, the point of liberalism is is at least recognizing, even if you might not understand, that there are other people who don't necessarily see the world in the way that you do. And once we do that, once we recognize the truth, then the reconciliation follows. It can't be the other way around. You can't put the carriage before the horse. So reconciliation, like something like the Places of Worship Act, which basically draws an ending line after 1947 and says, we're not going to dig up stuff and we're not going to change stuff. Whatever is there is there. I buy that. That's reconciliation. For me, reconciliation isn't this vague, amorphous talking about religious people talking to each other. Religious people don't talk to each other. There's nothing like that. The Constitution is the reconciliation. It is the formal contract for reconciliation. So what we're saying is, here's what happened, and we as a nation choose to move forward from this because we realize that we could go back in the path of history and keep on digging recursively and find stuff as a nation and spend our national energy and our resources doing that, or we could move forward. But that doesn't mean that we don't recognize what has happened. That doesn't mean that we try to tell people as they are being killed that, no, you're not being killed because of your group dynamics. But these guys, they've definitely been killed because of the group dynamics. No, you can say that, but that is only going to harden. That is the centrifuge effect. Once you say that, once you refuse to recognize the humanity of a certain group of people, whatever group of people it is, you are essentially encouraging group-based extremism. There's no other way to say this. So yes, there is Islamophobia. Yes, we should absolutely condemn wholeheartedly what happened to that poor gentleman. And I sincerely hope that the perpetrator in this case is punished, that there are no, that he doesn't get political backing, which is really the problem in states. This is not, this is not purely a communal problem. It's a political problem in states. People are basically immune to the law if they belong to certain political parties. But if you say that, you are considered to be anti-progressive. So for me, the importance is that we recognize the truth of group-based violence as it exists today. This is something which we can definitely get justice for. This is not what happened in Mughal times. This is not something which we should just ignore. Whether it be on Muslim, whether it be on Hindu, this is what our focus should be. Not, in my opinion, what happened 400 years ago. But if it is important, then we should at least have the guts to say what happened and have the truth out, the truth and only the truth. Thank you everybody for listening.